Hi, welcome to Flip Side of Normal. This is my very first vlog. I've never done this before. I'm sorry about the reflection of my glasses. I don't want to take them off and I can't get rid of it because it's the phone that I'm recording myself on. Um, anyway, back to my vlog. Everything that you see or hear in any of my vlogs, I can promise you is going to be 100% raw and uncut, unedited. It's going to be real life. It's not going to be anything crazy. I don't want you to think like I'm going to run around, videotaping the most crazy things you've ever seen. I just want to let you know it's not rehearsed. It's me. I mean, and you'll see, hopefully, as I go on to vlog, you'll see the different sides of me. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that in a minute. But I don't really know where to start on these things. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. Um, I am me. I'm 35 years old. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother. Yeah, I said grandma. Yeah, it's okay. Don't just sit there and faint at your chair. It's fine. Um, I have stepchildren, so I guess I'm a step grandma, technically, but I don't see it that way. They're like my flesh and blood because I love them just as much as I love my biological kids. I have a husband. He's 12 years older than me. I don't know if you'll ever see him on any of my vlogs because he's kind of sort of a private person and I'm not sure how he gauges this right now. So I don't know if you'll ever see him. My kids, I'm sure you'll see them. They're kind of hams. Actually, my 11-year-old has her very own YouTube channel. She plays Pet Shop. I don't understand it either. It's okay. But she likes to do it. It keeps her busy and active, and she's not on the streets, so whatever. More power to you. Um, but anyway, I'm not a hero. I'm not rich, not famous. I'm not going to sit here and tell you all these heroic tales that I've been through and woe is me tragedies because I haven't. I've been through rough stuff in my life, yes. We think we all have at some point. Um, my goal, I guess, is just kind of to talk to people. Because along with all my many titles, and I hold many, I have some unique qualities, I like to call them. Some people call them diagnoses, so I guess you can call them diagnoses if you want. But I have bipolar 2 disorder. I have OCD, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. Wait, isn't bipolar and depression the same thing? No. Educate yourself. And that's what I'm going to try to do because I get that a lot. When I tell people my diagnoses and they say, wait, bipolar and depression, isn't that the same thing? No, it's not. Completely different. Look it up. But that's kind of the goal of this vlog. I want to help people like me know that you're not alone because it can be scary, especially initially receiving one or any of those diagnoses is scary. I mean, even ADHD. How do you think of ADHD, you think of bouncing off the walls and, the worst case scenarios and, how do you manage your life? How do you be a mother? How do you be this? How do you be that? How can you hold down a job? But it's possible. And I guess that's just my goal, kind of, just to help people know they're not alone and to help show them you can do it. It's possible. Um, I was diagnosed with bipolar in 2009 at 27 years old, 28. Yeah, I have to think about my age. 28 years old. Um, it was scary. Kind of tell you the events surrounding of how, I mean, this has been in my life since I was probably about 5. My parents started to notice that there was just something not off, but different about me. I had a temper. It wasn't your throwing a fit on the floor, kicking and screaming for 5 minutes temper. This was, oh God, throwing my, like going into my room and completely destroying my bedroom, throwing the mattresses off my bed, the sheets, the pillows, throwing all my toys off the shelf, ripping all my clothes out of it, destroying things. I mean, literally destroying things my whole life. At one point, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, I slammed my head through a window, kind of like that. Um, because I was mad at my mom and dad. I'm sure it was over something stupid like I couldn't go out in the rain or, something because I was a child. But that's just kind of how my temper was. I didn't want to do it and I didn't think about doing it. It was just kind of an impulse. I mean, that's kind of one of the things with bipolar disorder is impulse control. I mean, most people have this little voice in their head that kind of tells them you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea or, wait, hold on. And it kind of gives you that moment of pause to think about it. With bipolar disorder, that goes out the window. You have no impulse control. Even if in your head, as you're doing or you're saying something, you know that you shouldn't be or you know that it's not good, you still can't stop yourself. You still do it. And I guess my temper, when I would go into a fit of rage, um, it felt like there was just so much rage inside of me that I needed to let it out. And I mean, being a child, I didn't really know good releases, proper releases of it. But I mean, I would punch myself, punch anything, destroy things. Just there was just this rage, and it was just like I had to get it out. Um, I've knocked complete doors off the wall, like no joke. Sat down, took my feet, kicked the door until the entire frame, door and all, went off the wall. I think I was a little bit older when I did that, maybe preteen. Excuse me, but I mean, I've done terrible things. Um, I can sit here and I can live in regret and feel bad about the things I've done, and I used to. Um, I used to feel horrible. The way I treated my parents, I mean, the cops, when I was growing up, the cops were no stranger to me. It got to a point we didn't even have to give them our address. I think they pretty much knew my mom by voice when she would call in. I'm not proud of it. I mean, regret, I do have regret. I mean, I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to do those things. But at the same time, I was not diagnosed because they didn't know about bipolar when I was little. It was just coming into the world. Back then it was called manic depressive. But in children, I mean, that was, and my mom and dad, they did their best. They tried. They talked to counselors. I was in counseling at 5 years old. Okay, I've been in counseling for 30 years at this point, off and on, not every day for 30 years, but they tried to get me counseling. I mean, I can remember some of the diagnoses when I was little, was anger control management. I didn't have any, obviously. Um, my mom tells me that I was really hyper as a child, and I was really hyper as a teen, so I believe it. She tried to see if I had ADD when I was little, because back then it wasn't ADHD, it was ADD. And the doctor told her no, that I was just a really active child, which I kind of thought was one of the definitions of ADD, but okay, we'll go with his definition, I guess. Um, so, I mean, they tried their best to try and get me help. I don't want you to think that, like, oh my God, she was acting like this and her parents just thought it was normal because they knew that it wasn't normal. But, I mean, you're talking about the 80s. I was born in 81. So, mental disorders back then, mental illness, it wasn't something that was one, it wasn't something that was openly talked about. And two, it still was in its infancy stages, especially bipolar disorder. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we know a lot more now. A lot more studies have been done. We have the DSM-4, 5, I think we're up to now, DSM-5, and things like that. But I mean, back then, you didn't. So my parents did the best they could, and I love them for it. I can't imagine what I was like raising because, I mean, I know just being a mother myself, my oldest daughter has autism and ADHD, and well, one of my doctors has said something about maybe high functioning Asperger's, so um, I'm gonna get her tested for that. But and she has social anxiety and dyspraxia and dyscalculia and all this other stuff that I get into in another blog. But like, I know how raising a child with processing issues is, and it's very difficult probably 10 times more difficult for me because I'm struggling with my own issues inside and trying to deal with her. Um, so I can't imagine what my parents went through, um, and how hard it must have been for them. But they did their best. As I got older, my fits got to be less and less. Not as much as they were when I was a child, but they were still there. Um, and when they were there, they were a lot worse because I was older and stronger and bigger. Um, I mean, like I said, I sat down and knocked an entire door and frame it off the wall, throwing a fit, and I'm not proud of it, but I did. At one point, I can remember holding a knife to my parents, not like literally, like I didn't have it here. But and you know why? Because I wanted to go to a friend's house and they said no because there was like 20 feet of snow on the ground and it was late at night. They were being parents, but I just, um, I get so much rage inside that now as an adult, and especially since being diagnosed and sort of researching on my issues, I know better channels to release that rage and stuff through. But back then I didn't. Um, and at back then I only had the anxiety, generalized anxiety, and depression. Well, no, I don't even think I had depression. No, I just had generalized anxiety back then. Um, and of course, the anger control thing that they had always said I had. Um, I was in anger control management classes. I remember that when my counselors did that with me. They didn't work. Um, I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm saying that they didn't work. And to come to find out, they didn't work because you have to treat the underlying problem, not the symptoms. And while I did have anger control problems, obviously, with how I was, that wasn't my underlying problem. My underlying problem was that I had bipolar disorder and that needed to be treated. But we didn't know that then. How did I get diagnosed? Well, in 2009, I was just recently married for the second time. Probably like a year we had been married. We had been through some treacherous stuff. His ex wife wasn't the best person. She made it very difficult in the beginning. And then he had his two daughters. And the youngest one at the time was 11 going on 12. Didn't get along with mom's boyfriend. So we kind of inherited a teenager, a preteen overnight. I mean, that's really what happened. We had her for visitation. We dropped her off at home the day that we were supposed to drop her off. And within an hour or so of being home, we got a really bad phone call. There was just a situation, and we just decided it best that at that moment she comes. So within a few hours, we literally had a preteen living with us, which was okay for my husband because he had already been through it. But at the time, my oldest child was 3. So I don't know how to deal with teenagers. I barely knew how to deal with a 3-year-old. So it kind of, was a monkey wrench thrown in, an obstacle. So we're kind of dealing with all that. And so we fought, obviously. All couples fight and argue because we were both trying to figure out how to handle this. I mean, it was definitely a life change for the both of us. And we had no time to prepare. It just kind of happened. And I don't regret it. I'm not mad about it or anything. But I'm just saying, like, we had no time to prepare. So we were trying to adjust and change on top of being a brand new married couple. So, and everybody knows what comes along with the kind of all that. So it was rough. And I mean, when you're blending families anyway, it's not easy to blend families. Let me tell you. That's another post though. But we got into a fight one night. It was a really bad argument. Tempers were flaring. And I can't even tell you the details because I don't remember. I just remember we were arguing. And I remember that I was standing next to our kitchen table. We were sitting in the dining room. He was getting ready to walk out the door. And I was standing in the dining room. And there was a cup, a glass, like a little 4-ounce glass, half glass, and a can of 7-Up sitting on the table. Well, previously, like 5 minutes before that, I had already picked the can of 7-Up and thrown it at the wall. I don't know why. Again, anger, rage, impulse control. Couldn't stop it. Before I knew what was really happening, I had picked up the glass and I had thrown it, and I had hit my husband in the eye, given him several stitches in his eye. He still has a scar today. Um, it was at that point, once everything, once the smoke cleared, um, that I had time to calm down and think about it, that I realized there was something seriously wrong with me. So we separated for a few days, and I went down to my mom's house, and they have a camper, and they camp at a lake. And it was me and my daughter, who was 3 at the time, and them. And yeah, I mean, in bipolar you cycle, and one of the major symptoms though is depression. And when the depression takes a hold of you, it pulls you under quickly. It's like a strong undertow. I mean, you don't have any time. You can tread water, you can do whatever you want. You can't get your head above it for a long time. It takes over quickly. And I was just laying in my parents' camper one night, and something broke. I mean, that's the best as I can explain it, is something broke, and I started realizing who I was. I felt bad for, I started looking at my entire life up until that time, everything that I had done, the way I was, and I knew there was something wrong with me, or I thought there was something wrong with me. And so my thought was, and my feeling was, that I've caused people so much misery and grief that I need to go. Like, the best thing for them would be for me to go. I mean, how could I raise my daughter, acting like this? I didn't want to be like this. I tried not to be like this, but it was just like I couldn't help it. So my mom is a diabetic, and she was taking the insulin pills. She didn't have to take the shot. She could take the pills. And so I'm laying there in bed, and I wanted to go, but I didn't want to do it in a way, because my daughter was there. So I started thinking that if I take my mom's diabetic pills, I'll go to sleep, because it'll send me into a coma, And then in the morning when everybody wakes up, they don't find this ugly scene. I'm just sleeping and I won't wake up. And that's how my daughter could remember it. And then I sat there thinking about it a little bit more, and I got scared, and I didn't want to do it. But I thought at the time it was the best way to do it. But there was still a piece of me fighting. So I snuck out of my parents' camper away from the pills. And I kind of started to go for a walk, and the thought started to become stronger and stronger and stronger, and so I knew that I needed to get somewhere safe, where I was safe. So I walked up to the gatehouse of the campground, and there was a young man there on night duty. I walked up, and he asked if he could help me, and I just looked at him and told him that he needed to call 911. And he said, of course he asked why, what was wrong. And I told him because if he didn't call 911, then he was going to be calling 911 in the morning to fish me out of the lake, that I needed to go to the hospital. He was very nice, very sweet. He called 911. Of course, the ambulance came, took me to the hospital, and it goes from there. Being in the hospital, they evaluated me. Here comes my youngest monster. She just woke up. But they evaluated me, and that's the diagnosis they came up with. And once I started to really research it and look at it, hi baby, it made sense. And then talking to doctors and stuff like that, sit over here, it made sense. Hi, how are you? It's my little monster. I would show you to her right now, but she just woke up, and she's not looking too cute. So we'll let her wake up a little bit. But so that's how I got my diagnosis. And of course, it was, from there, of course, the initial diagnosis, I was scared. I was, called myself crazy quite a few times. How was I going to handle it? I hated it. And then I started to research it, and it's amazing what just a little bit of education can do for you. Um, can help you to realize. Um, did your show come on? But I mean, that's really. I just started educating myself, and I started to realize that I wasn't. I'm gonna go in the bedroom while you watch this, okay? I'll be back. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't sick. There was nothing wrong with me, and I realized that I was gonna be okay. Um, that I just had to educate myself and sort of get more knowledge about it. And that's what I did. And after that, with all the feelings that I had in the beginning, of I thought people were going to treat me differently, see me differently. I kind of felt like I wasn't the same person. Um, but I eventually realized that I was. It's just a diagnosis. It doesn't define who I am. And I wasn't going to let it define who I am or who I was, however you want to put it. That I was going to survive this and I was going to live with it because obviously it doesn't go away. It's not like I can take a pill and cure it. Um, and I know I just realized that I had two options. I could let bipolar control me or I could control my bipolar disorder. And I chose the latter of the two. Um, and that means a lot of things. That means lifestyle changes, personality changes, medication, therapy, close medical follow-up. And it was a burden in the beginning because it had gone untreated for so long. I had to be on medicine. There was no way around it. I wasn't getting out of it. Just to get it under control. But eventually, within a couple of years, and just being proactive about my diagnosis, I got off my medicine. I've been off my medicine now for a little over 4 years. Not to say that I don't have breakthroughs, but you have breakthroughs on medicine too. But I've learned how to manage it on my own through cognitive behavior, diet, exercise, the whole 9 yards. Um, and, you know, I don't have to take those 6 pills a day anymore and kill my liver. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be on medicine. Medicine is a good thing, or can be. But I'm saying that you don't always have to be on medicine depending on your symptoms. I mean, I'm living proof. But you have to be very proactive and you have to want to control it because it's hard sometimes, especially as a mother and a wife. I mean, you get put in situations. You can't avoid stress. You can't avoid arguments. You can't avoid problems. It's called life. I mean, if you want to avoid it, lock yourself up in a bedroom. You're not going to avoid it if you want to live. You just kind of have to learn. I mean, there are certain things you have to avoid. You learn to avoid. You keep a diary, learn your triggers. That's like one of my main things. And I did. I learned my triggers and I've learned the ones that I can avoid and I've learned to manage the ones that I can't avoid. But you have to take control of it. You can't let it control you. But you have to be proactive. You have to want to learn. You have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to try new things. I mean, it's not crazy things, It's exercise. It's taking vitamins. It's just changing your way of thinking about things. It's not crazy. It's not like you have to go out, sell your house, and move to Alaska or something and isolate yourself. It's just simple things, but you have to be motivated to do it and you have to want to do it. And I mean, I have 2 reasons. I had 1 reason back then. I now currently have 2 reasons, let alone the rest of my family and friends. And so I did it. That's not to say that sometimes I don't feel like I need the medicine, because sometimes I do. Life is stressful. Been through a lot. I mean, I'll get into it later. I've been through a lot. And so there are times where like I'm really like, oh, I need my medicine. And I hate feeling like that, but I mean, if it helps me be a better person, then there's nothing wrong with it. And sometimes you just have to be on it to control it, to get it under control. and then you can get off and manage. So, I guess I've rambled on enough about me for now. But I mean, the goal of this vlog is just to be real and to let people know, like, this is real life. Bipolar disorder is real, um, but it can be managed. It can be controlled. You don't have to be doped up and zombie-like to control it. Um, you just have to be motivated, you know, and educated. And that's the best thing I can tell you to do is get out there, educate yourself, um, talk to people, support groups, whatever you have to do. Talk to people. Um, I guess that's the other reason for this vlog is I'm an open book. I mean, you can comment below, ask me any questions you want. Tell me something that, ask me to discuss something. If I've got knowledge of it, I will. Is there something you want to hear about? Is there something you don't understand? Maybe you want me to tell you, because I will tell you this, doctors know a lot. Okay, they're very educated. They know all the book stuff. They know the symptoms. They know how to deal with the symptoms, things like that, but they don't really know what it's like to live with it. Nobody does unless they have it. So you can read articles, read books. I encourage you to. Talk to your doctors. I encourage you to. But also the best thing to do is to find somebody else who has or who shares the diagnosis, and talk to them. If that's me, I'm here. I mean, like I said, I'm an open book. Ask me anything you want. I'll try to explain anything you want. I won't give out my details. You're not going to get my phone number. You're not going to get my address or my name. But other than that, I mean, I've experienced a lot, and I want to talk. So, comment below. Tell me what you think of this video. It's my first vlog, like I said. It's uncut, raw, unedited. I probably rambled on. It tells me at the top of my phone that it's 27 minutes long. Hopefully it wasn't boring. It was just a start, kind of to get you familiar with my situation. But I will be vlogging, from here on out, different things. And they might be scattered because that's how my brain works. My brain is scattered. I have ADHD, so, I get focused on one thing and then something else pops into my mind and I can fly right off that and go to something else. Subject changes like crazy. So, but just comment below, subscribe. Even if you don't have bipolar disorder yourself, if you know somebody who has it, I could probably help you to understand them better and how to deal with them, because I can tell you what to do and what not to do. And here's my first piece of advice. Do not ever ask anybody with bipolar disorder if they've taken their medicine. Don't ever ask it. Just don't. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. Just don't. That's my one piece of advice to you. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've kind of enjoyed making it and telling my story. And hopefully, I don't know, somebody comes across it, and even if I can help, make one person feel a little bit better about themselves, then I reached my goal. So, see ya.